Beautiful evening again on, I guess it's still the 29th of March. It's been a gorgeous day out on this deck, and yet it's as enjoyable and life-giving as I've said to you. I love being out here. The fact is that it's been 3 weeks today since we've met congregationally. We've seen each other here and there, and seen each other online to be sure, and we're glad to have the technology that we have. But it was 3 weeks ago today that we made our first video meet. Almost more of a chapel session than a full worship service, wasn't it? And I miss the folks. I miss you folks at the church. It's amazing to me the drastic changes that have taken place in the last couple of weeks. 3 weeks ago it was 250 people who couldn't meet. Before we knew it, it was 50. Last night at 9:15, many of our brother and sisters churches had to scramble because it was 5. Drastic action. And apparently drastic action is what it's going to take for us to get it through our heads to stay home, stop seeing each other. We'd slam a lid on this thing if we'd all do this for a couple of weeks, it seems. We're almost going to have some history with this, aren't we, that if we would do this. Drastic action seems to be what's required. Essential services only. Lineups at the gas stations and lineups at the grocery stores. Can't go to the bank except for extraordinary situations. We're not always good at handling drastic, are we? We're certainly not good at handling drastic for a drastic amount of time, sometimes it seems. You know, Jesus said some pretty dramatic, drastic, extraordinary things, didn't he? We have to guard ourselves against dumbing down everything Jesus said to light and easy and doable and, sort of in our level of competency, our level of understanding and preference. And sometimes, if we're not careful, the gospel can be, as Spurgeon said, a grape with all the juice sucked out of it. And doesn't look much like a grape anymore. It looks like a raisin. And God's designed us as people who need Him and need Him drastically. Some of you heard it in my sermon this morning. We were in 2 Kings chapter 6 and the wonderful scene of God's redemption of the nation of Israel, at least of the city of Samaria, because of the love that these lepers had for the people inside the gates who had actually hated them. And there's plenty of application that we could make beyond what we did. But some of you caught it in the first point that was about obliterating love for ourselves so that we could formulate love for others and then allocate our stuff in love for them. Some of you caught it when I say obliterate self-love or love that's focused on ourselves, I don't mean self-loathing. But there is a kind of obliterating and a kind of love for self that needs to be obliterated, because Jesus said drastic things in John chapter 12 and verse 25. Just as he's about to enter into the upper room discourse with his disciples. He says, John 12:25, unless you hate your life in this world, you're not gonna find it. It's he who hates his life in this world who finds life. It's a drastic statement, and it's a statement that we immediately want to say doesn't mean hate. Well, the Bible's not a book of riddles, friends. It doesn't need to be translated and explained and taught. Don't be too quick to use our erasers. What Jesus is saying there's a kind of hatred of this life that we are so desperate to hang on to. That we've got to shove that aside and see that kind of love for this kind of life just obliterated. Because if this is what we're living for something that's going to go up in smoke. We've got a few folks of ours at the church, as you know, who've seen a few more winters than I have. And they will tell you they just cannot believe how quickly life went by. Some of you who watch our Facebook post saw that I posted a anniversary of the death of a gentleman, Bob Lusignan. 13 years ago he died. And I remember Bob, the other side of 90, when he died, telling me that as I visited with him in the hospital and these kind of things, he just he couldn't believe how quickly his life went. And that he wished he had taken more drastic steps earlier in his life. Friends, the gospel is a message, as Dietrich Bonhoeffer said. When Jesus bids a man come, he bids him come and die. Now, dying without Christ is perishing. Dying with Christ actually equals eternal life. Drastic statement, Jesus. But that's really what one of the most popular verses that we know. That God so loved this world that he gave. And he gave his one and only begotten Son, that whosoever should believe in him should not die, not perish, but have eternal life. Notice that the parallel between eternal life is not die. The parallel is with perish. Everyone's going to die. Dying without Jesus is what perishing means. And we need to take extraordinary steps, particularly in our attitude about all of this that we're trying to cling to. It's just going to go through our hands like water. Friends, don't be afraid to run to the arms of Jesus and drastically give yourself in joyful submission to him. That really is the path to real life. It really is the path to the kind of peace that we need, especially during times of difficulty that are extraordinary to what most of us have ever dealt with. God's got this, friends. I would love for everyone listening to the sound of my voice to be able to say, God's got this and God's got me. Run to Christ, friends, with confidence in the promises of God. This is Pastor Pete. Cheers.